Hello and welcome to Knockoff Media's Tyre for Tyre podcast. I'm Alan.
And I'm Raf.
Today we're going to be talking about the race that took place in Imola this last weekend. Rafi, why don't you give us a quick top 10 rundown?
So coming in first place was Max Verstappen. After fighting from the back of the pack, Lewis Hamilton got second. And to everybody's happiness and enjoyment, Lando Norris got third. Fourth, fifth, and sixth was Leclerc, Sainz, and Ricciardo. And rounding out the pack was Gasly, Stroll, Ocon, and Alonso.
It was a very exciting race. Rafi, why don't you give us a quick highlights?
Oh, and there were a lot of highlights. So in the first lap, Latifi spun, and then when coming back onto track, had a crash with Mazepin, forcing Latifi to DNF. Gasly, after in the end fighting to seventh, he started on a bad tire shot and really didn't recover till the end. Hamilton had a runoff and then crunched his front wing trying to recover. During that, Russell and Bottas had a huge crash early into the lap. And then Verstappen maintained his lead throughout the entire race, barring maybe a lap or two because of a pit stop.
Yeah, it was a very exciting race. Watching Hamilton chase down Leclerc, then Norris towards the end was very exciting stuff. But let's move on. Let's discuss how these teams did throughout the weekend. This is through practice, qualifying, and the race itself. We're going to be running in championship order from last season. So starting up first is Mercedes. So for me, Mercedes, I think they got a 7. Lewis Hamilton was able to put the car in pole after not looking the strongest, but not looking weak in any sort of the way throughout the weekend. However, the reason why they're not at the top is because of Bottas' performance throughout the weekend, barely getting into the top 10, and then not really having a very strong race throughout. Rafi, what are your thoughts?
I gave Mercedes an 8 because of how much Lewis Hamilton did carry. He did get pole, and just actually fighting through the back of the pack, like you said, was just so exhilarating. Bottas, I don't think he was there mentally and honestly physically the way he drove, and of course that crash that we're going to be talking about later. So yeah,
Definitely not their best weekend, but, not a terrible one. They're still leading the championship. Moving on, let's talk about Red Bull, the team that wants to be leading the championship. Max Verstappen had a solid weekend. Yes, he missed out on pole. However, he took the lead of the race really quickly, right at the start. However, Perez, after putting it on the front row, didn't do so great. Rafi, what are your thoughts?
I gave them a 7, a solid 7. They weren't the best. They were close, but weren't. Like you said, Verstappen, amazing race. I feel like he's starting to become maybe the master of the wets after this race. He definitely looked like he could have been. Perez, he made that one mistake that I don't understand how he did it. Maybe he thought it was a formation lap instead of a safety car. But yeah, at least he recovered well. He got 11th. That's all I can say about Perez.
I'm giving them an 8 because of how well both cars seemed to do, even though Perez didn't do so well, but he did get on the front row, and Max Verstappen definitely for the win. But let's move on to McLaren. I'm giving them a 9. I think they had a solid weekend. The car looks really strong, even got a podium, almost put it on the front row during qualifying. However, I think Ricciardo's performance needs to improve a bit. Rafi, what do you think?
I do agree Ricciardo does need to perform a bit better, but I gave them a 10. They looked solid throughout practice. Qualifying was awesome but heartbreaking because he went a bit over in turn 9. Norris did. Throughout the race, you saw how well their pace was, and especially how gentlemanlike and cordial they were over the radios, a lot telling Ricciardo to let Norris pass, and for Ricciardo not to try to fight him and then almost cause an incident. Instead, they understood they were teammates in the end, and the Constructors' Championship is a bit more important than the drivers for themselves right now.
Oh, yeah, very much so. Now, let's move on to a team that did not do so well. Aston Martin Racing. It was a tough week for them. They never looked strong. They didn't qualify strong. And they had multiple issues throughout the race. That being brakes catching on fire, transmission issues on both cars. That's why I'm giving them a 1 this weekend. Rafi?
I got to agree with you with all your points, but I'm giving them a 2 because one team, in my opinion, did get worse, and we're going to get to them soon.
Moving on to Alpine. I gave them a 5. Mainly that's because they did get into the points. I don't think they were going to get into the points without having another team's misfortune. And I keep forgetting about them. They kind of seem like a chicken without a head with Cyril gone. Rafi, what are your thoughts?
They're just a very quiet team right now. They got ninth and 10th, which is great. Yeah, Raikkonen did get a time penalty in the end, which caused him not to be in the points, but did allow Alonso back in the points. I gave them a 6.
Yeah. They're kind of forgettable right now. But let's move to a team that's not forgettable. Ferrari. Oh, it's good to see the Ferraris running somewhat near the front again. That's why I gave them a 10. I believe they have a strong pace this year. They could occasionally fight for some podiums. Maybe the odd win if the situation's right. Both drivers did fairly well. Sainz did had a little struggle here and there. Rafi, what are your thoughts on Ferrari this weekend?
Ferrari, I think they're getting the horses back prance, and they were looking fast. They were looking competitive. They finished decently high. I gave them a 9 because I'm a McLaren fan, and I had to give McLaren the 10 because Norris got third. I'm still excited and I'm so happy that happened. But Ferrari, I'm glad to see them recover as well as they did. I remember in our first podcast, I was saying maybe Ferrari is going to be fifth. They got to recover more. If this is a sign for the future, next season they may be another front runner, and we'll have 4 teams battling for first instead of 2 or 3.
That would be very exciting. I could only imagine. But let's moving on to the other Italian team. That is Alpha Tauri. The car looked like it had pace throughout the weekend. However, between some bad decisions during the race and the crash that took out Tsunoda during qualifying, I gave them a 4. Rafi, what do you think?
I gave them a 5. They were in the middle of the pack. Tsunoda's crash did hurt them a lot. The bad tire strategy for Gasly wasn't a good look for them. But I kind of expected this because Gasly's usually safe when it comes to, on the safer end when it comes to tire strategy. He always likes to maybe use the harder tires, or in the wets, if it's a little bit wet, you can see he throws on the blues. He's like, oh, I want to be as safe as possible. But I did see something funny. There is now debate on who curses more in F1, Tsunoda or Gunther. And I really want to see how this plays out throughout the season.
I can't wait to see that Netflix episode.
It's going to be a good one.
Moving on to Alfa Romeo. The car looked decent. I think they definitely should have gotten points if it wasn't for that penalty that Raikkonen had. That's why I gave them a 6. It was strong, nothing really special, but it was a good race. Rafi, what are your thoughts?
They had a strong race. It was nice. I did give them a 4 in the end because Raikkonen did get that. I think it was a 3-second penalty when the restart lap was happening after the red flag. Besides that, they were. I feel like Alpine, Alpha are just very quiet this season. I wonder if they're going to turn it up soon, or at least maybe in the back half of the season. Who knows?
I think the Ferrari engine upgrade has really helped that team. While they're not back to their 2018 pace that looked really strong with Leclerc, I think they're moving in the right direction again, and it's good to see them fighting for the occasional point. Now, let's move to a team that used to fight for points, is now so far off, it hurts. Haas. What can I say about Haas? They're just not there. I think Williams went through this the last couple of years, and I believe it's the turn of Haas to go through it. I gave him a 2.
I gave him a 3. You hate to see it with the double rookie strategy. They thought it might have paid off, but we kind of also expected this. I gave Haas a 3 because both of them finished. Yeah, Schumacher had not a bad crash, but a crash to close the pit lanes because he crashed right in front and lost his front wing, but was able to recover.
Yeah, it's tough. Haas, I believe, is not going to be finishing in the points this year. No. If it is, it'll be out of some miracle for them. But it's really just not a good car, and it's not going to improve since there's no upgrades coming for it. But
I think 10 cars have to crash out for Haas to get points.
You never know. It's racing. It has happened before.
It has.
Now let's move to a team that I believe can get points and almost got points this weekend. Williams. I gave them a 3. The car looked strong. It should have gotten points. We all know one reason why they didn't get points. actually two. Both drivers. Rafi, what are your thoughts?
I gave Williams a 1. I'm not gonna sugarcoat this. Both drivers messed up tremendously. I don't know what Latifi was thinking when he crossed all the way back to get into the racing line. And Russell, I think it's more the nerves, or maybe he's trying to prove himself that he's better than a Mercedes driver. But I had to give him a 1. They did look good in practice and qualifying, but if you can't finish the race, it doesn't matter how good you look in qualifying or practice.
Mm-hmm.
I think they got to reset their mental and come back for Portugal.
Let's hope so. I think that Portugal could be a very good race for them, depending on the win. Anyway, let's move on. That was Knockoff Media's championship, constructor championship point system that we'll be doing throughout the season. If you'd like to see how each team is doing at the end of each week, we will be updating their scores on our social medias, which is Knockoff Media _racing for Instagram. That will be posted shortly. Now, let's move on to our top 5 drivers and bottom 5 drivers of the weekend. Starting off, Rafi, what were your scores?
So for the top 5, of course, I had to put Norris at 5. He had a beautiful drive. He showed a true pace of a McLaren, and somewhat of a redemption. A lot of people were second guessing if they are really the third in the constructors' championship because of last season, but I think they're proving solidly that they believe in it. My fourth person to get 4 points was Verstappen. He had a beautiful race and a beautiful start. Leclerc and Sainz are getting 3 points and 2 points respectively, as I said their names. Ferrari's looking beautiful. I'm so happy to see them recover. It was really sad joining F1 last year and just seeing such respected and well-known name of Ferrari just struggle tremendously. And then I had to give Gasly 1 point because of how well he recovered with the bad tire strategy.
Yeah, those are some good choices. So much so that some of mine are going to be very similar. So 5th place, I'm giving, or 5 points, I'm giving to Norris. 4 points to Verstappen. 3 points to Leclerc. But this is where we differ. I'm giving 2 points to Raikkonen. He was in the points. And I believe, if I'm remembering correctly, it was the team that messed up. It was a rolling start procedural, or he might have screwed up. But he was in the points. The car was looking good. It's unfortunate he didn't get them. So I'm giving him points here. And for the single point, I'm giving him Sainz. He did well. He spun a lot. He made a lot of mistakes, which aren't great. But he did end up right behind Leclerc in I believe 5th place at the end of the race, which is a good drive. So I'm happy to see that he's doing pretty decently at Ferrari. However, now let's move on to a little more fun part of the bottom 5. For this championship, we will be deducting points from their scores throughout the season. So if they have a 5 week and then get -5 that next week, they will have 0. So starting off with me, mine -5 goes to Latifi for crashing within the first lap with not only by himself and then tangling up with Mazepin. My -4 is Russell, which we all know why, and we'll be talking about later. My number 3 is Bottas for not necessarily the same reason with Russell, but because of his pace. My -2 goes to Perez because he just really didn't look like he had to handle that car in the wet. And my -1 was Tsunoda for crashing in qualifying and then spinning within the race. Rafi, give us yours.
So my -5 is Bottas because 1 of what we're going to be talking about later again, we know what happened, and 2, it's just I don't know what happened with him this week, and maybe he was disheartened from Bahrain. Maybe he just wasn't with it this weekend. He just didn't look like himself. He did not look like the Mercedes Bottas that we know, the guy that can get second and possibly fight for first place. -4 was Russell because we know why, and we're going to be talking about it later. 3 was Latifi because he did not finish the first lap, and he almost took out Mazepin, which, no matter what gripes you have with Mazepin, he should not almost be taken out of the race from a mistake he didn't make. My -2 was Perez because of what happened on the safety car. He shot himself in the foot pretty much. He probably would have gotten, I think, top 4 if he did not have that 10-second penalty, 10-second added to a pit stop penalty. And then my -1 was Vettel because he just didn't finish the race, even though I've been hearing a lot that like, oh, it's because it's smarter for the next race, so that way he doesn't have to reuse the same transmission or gearbox. But it just didn't feel like the Vettel I used to know. I really want to see him back in his prime fighting, but it hasn't been a season and 2 races for him.
Oh man, it's been tough. Let's hope they improve. And it's unfortunate that Aston Martin's going through so many troubles. But now that we've done the points, these will also be updated on our social media. Once again, knockoffmedia_racing on Instagram, and we'll be updating those shortly. But let's move on to the moment of the weekend, where we both discuss our favorite part. For me, it's having a championship battle with a battle for the lead. It was so great to see Max Verstappen and Lewis Hamilton fighting through the lead for most of the race until Hamilton had his crash. And then Hamilton fighting back through the field and once again getting close to battle.
Yeah.
Rafi, what was your moment of the weekend?
My moment of the weekend, and it's not going to be a shock because I'm a McLaren fan, and this is what the 5th time I'm saying this, Norris getting the podium by his own merit, by his own racing standard. Like, yeah, his other podium was, Hamilton had a 5-second time penalty, so all he had to do was get within 5 seconds. Not pass him, but just within 5 seconds. But this was on his own merit. Yeah, Hamilton passed him for second, but he did not lose out to Leclerc. But I will have to say, I do love the championship battling happen right now. It makes it more exciting. Like last season, Mercedes won on Hamilton points alone.
Yeah.
This season is going to be very fun. And I love all the hype videos that are coming out before the race. If it's like King Kong versus Godzilla kind of drivers. And it's like, this is an amazing season.
Yeah, it
so
hasn't
far.
been this good since 2018 with Vettel and Hamilton. People forget Vettel was fighting for that championship, and it got pretty close at some points until his crash in Germany, where we had these kind of videos. Who would get 5 championships first? So it's good to see it again. I've missed it, and let's hope Formula One can keep this up for the future.
Yeah.
But let's now move on to rumors and drama that have happened through the last couple of weeks. There's a big one we're going to talk about, but let me do a quick rundown on the others because I think that last one is going to take up a lot of time. So, first one, Button jokes or says that Hulkenberg being signed as Aston Martin's reserve driver is going to put Vettel under more pressure. What do you think about that one, Rafi?
I don't know how much pressure, but yeah, a little pressure. Hulk did look good last season when he had to replace. It was Stroll and Perez at certain races. I think the car is just not there for Aston, and that's why Vettel's struggling right now.
Do you
honestly.
think, though, Aston Martin will put their star driver, kick him to the curb, and put Hulk in if he keeps having these awful performances?
No. I honestly think that'd make them worse than what Ferrari did.
Yeah, I completely agree. I cannot see Hulkenberg taking over unless Vettel completely forgets how to drive.
Yeah.
So, yes, there's a little bit of pressure, but I don't think it's going to be a problem.
I will say maybe to reset Vettel a bit. Like he's like, okay, I just need to take a race off to get my mind straight. Maybe Hulk comes in for one race or two. But outright replacing him for the half of the season or whatever, or the rest of the season, I don't think that's likely.
Yeah. Anyway, let's move on to Miami has been announced for a track for 2022. I know this is good news for Raf and I because we both live in the Florida area.
Yeah,
Rafi, what are your thoughts? What do you think of the Miami joining the calendar?
I love it. It's a hometown race. I can literally drive to the race and not have to worry about like anything. I just have to pay for a ticket. I love it, and I especially love that they went around the Hard Rock Stadium instead of their original plan, which was to go across the bridge. I believe like it looked like a distorted oval with how many streets there were. This one, even though it's a street circuit, and I don't like street circuits very much, I like the layout of the track. I feel like it's gonna be and everyone's probably gonna flame me. Maybe it's gonna be a better version of Monaco.
No, I think
Yes,
the one
I
that was on the water over the bridges, which I've raced on Assetto Corsa with a mod, was amazing. Just not for the racing. I think the racing would have been like a Monaco.
yeah.
It was kind of hard to drive. I didn't do so well. But oh my gosh, could you imagine cars flying over the water at upward high 100 miles per hour, like 180s, 190s, maybe 200? Oh, it would have been insane. However,
Yeah.
going around the hard rock, it should be exciting, but it won't be spectacular.
Nah, it's definitely going to be exciting. I will say, I think Red Bull did a video, I think in like 2018, with them doing exactly what you just said, going down going across the bridge over the ocean. I think they were just doing it as Red Bull likes to do all these wacky, crazy things.
Yeah, let's
Yeah.
just go say it's going to be exciting. I'm so happy that the U.S. is getting another race. I know a lot of people, possibly in Europe and other parts of the world, Asia, they're like, why does the Americas get two? We're a pretty large market, and if you can sink your teeth into us, you're going to make a lot of money.
Yeah. Plus, it's Miami.
Yeah,
I think we needed a race there because we used to have Long Beach in California, but
yeah.
now we have Miami.
We have Miami. We used to have it in Indianapolis, which, there have been some rumors that could come back to F1 possibly because now Roger Penske owns it, and he has stated that he would love to have F1 back on that track.
That'd
But
be amazing to have 3 USA races.
let's talk about another track that may not be joining us this year. That is Canada. It may be canceled, which is kind of a shock because that's going to be in a couple of weeks, so they better figure that out pretty quickly.
I've read this. If I believe they were wanting to have it a closed race because of security reasons. I wonder if they were talking about COVID or not.
Yeah, it's COVID. It's
But
COVID related.
yeah, I I commend them for trying to be as safe as possible. I hope that doesn't get canceled because when we play F1 2017 or 2020, I do love the Canada circuit. It, I would hate to go another season without seeing it.
It's a good circuit. It never creates a lot of drama unless you're counting what was it, Canada 2011 with Jenson Button going all over the place on that one and taking the win from Vettel in the wet, crazy
Yeah.
race. Or the tires, but there needs to be some element. If it's just a dry race, it's not going to be very exciting. But I hope it sticks. If it does cancel, I believe even though everyone wants Turkey, I think they're going to Nürburgring because they're the only ones that could truly afford it so in short amount of time. So we'll
Yeah.
we'll have to wait and see on that one. But
I was hearing rumors about Neverland or Turkey.
yeah, I think it's definitely favoring Nürburgring at the moment.
That'd be a
But
great race to watch.
let's move on to the next thing, which is teams may be allowed to go $600,000 over budget because there's a cost cap this season if they crash in the sprint race, which many of you probably know that sprint races have been approved for the season. There are going to be three. Only two come to mind. It's Monza and Silverstone. I can't think of the third at the moment. That will be doing these sprint races, trying them out, see if it creates better racing or more racing. I don't think there will be much, but you never know. Rafi, what do you think about this?
It's interesting. I do like how they're being flexible with it. I
Hmm.
don't know if there's a strategy to crashing out of the race because it's only for repairs. I think this is a great exploratory thing they're doing with the sprint races. I don't know if it's going to stick for next season, but doing it this season would be nice. I would love to see how it all works out. Like maybe a sprint race is the reason why one person wins the driver or one constructor wins the championship.
It's interesting because the winner of the sprint race, I believe, gets 3 points, second gets two, and third gets one. There are not a lot of points up to grab. So
Then there shouldn't be.
I kind of see it as going to be, it's like, oh, yeah, this could have been really cool if we had reverse grid or top 10, the first top 10 have reverse grid, but it's not going to happen.
Reverse grid
Um,
will never come to F1. What are you talking about?
yeah, it's just, I think it started off as a really good idea, and it's just going to kind of fail miserably, unfortunately. But moving on, another rumor or drama is Mick Schumacher says driving in the back is almost torture. That it drives him wild because he's the F2 champion from last year, and he's so used to fighting and all, and now he's just kind of fights with his teammate, or if he's lucky, Latifi and Russell. But he even says he pretends that Russell mainly or Latifi's leading the race, and that he's trying to hunt him down to take the win for the race. That way, he stays interested in what's going on.
Yeah, I don't know what he expected. He
He
knew
knew what
Haas was he knew Haas. Sorry, I was about to say Haas. That's not right. Haas was struggling, especially in 2020, and I don't know if he thought like, oh, maybe they will be not 19th and 20th the entire year, but at least he's keeping his head in the game. I like his spirit.
You know what? After watching his junior careers, because I briefly saw him a little bit in F3, but mostly watched him in F2 for those 2 years. I knew in F3 his first year was pretty bad, but his second year he came back and won that championship. F2 first year he struggled. Next year he won the championship. While he's going to struggle this year, and I don't think he's going to win the championship next year. You never know. Haas is taking this year completely off to focus on next year. I think it gives him time to get used to racing in Formula One. And while it's a little bit of torture, it'll do him a lot of good just to keep focused and improving himself.
I half thought you were going to be like, and he's going to win the championship next year.
He's going to win the championship next year.
And
Mick Schumacher wins.
That would be the biggest payoff to make if you bet that Schumacher wins the championship next year.
Oh, I think people would lose their mind. He'd get signed immediately to Ferrari. I don't know which driver they would have to break a contract with, but they would want him right away.
Oh, 100%. But yeah, I think maybe in his second year is where he starts to prove that why he can be promoted to Ferrari. And then the year after, that next silly season is then when we can see possibly that move up to Ferrari. But for now, I understand what he's saying. He is a guy that was a front runner in his junior career. Now coming up to the pro leagues is having to deal with that snail's pace of a car.
Yeah.
No offense. But
moving on. So the last little bit of rumors or drama before we get to the big one is Toto Wolff says Bottas and Russell crash can affect future upgrades for this season. He's obviously talking about the Mercedes because that's his team. That Bottas's accident will prevent them from bringing things that would make his car go faster because now they have to repair the car, and which, from my understanding, is included in the cost cap. So,
that does that also affect Hamilton?
Yes.
Well?
I'm not entirely sure if it affects Hamilton, but I have a feeling it might.
Yeah, that's no wonder why Toto chewed both their ears out afterwards, and especially after that post Russell made on Instagram and on his social medias, I could see why.
I guess we need to kind of go in and discuss the Bottas and Russell incident during the race. If you didn't watch it, I can't quite remember when it happened, other than it was right as Hamilton spun, which was kind of cause for Russell being there, but it wasn't Russell's fault. It just was bad timing for both drivers. Yeah. And then so you see Hamilton go into the gravel. He breaks his wing only to not get stuck in the gravel. Like he knew that he couldn't go much further, but his back end was sinking, so he launched and put it in the wall, but he was able to get out and continue the race and finish in second. However, right as that was all finishing up, we cut to Bottas and Russell slamming into the walls. And we're all going, oh my gosh, what happened? So what happened was Bottas was going a bit slow. Russell got that DRS, went out, checked up on the outside, I believe. And Russell says Bottas moved and didn't give him enough space. After watching the replay and hearing some other analysis, he just went a little wide, got a little wet spot, and then crashed into Bottas.
Yeah.
It was kind of eventful. And then the confrontation after the crash with Russell going over to Bottas, slapping on the helmet, Bottas giving the finger and swearing at each other. It was quite an event.
I did not like how it was handled afterwards, but I understand emotions run high.
Oh,
definitely should not hit another racer. I'm fine with flicking them off and curse at them. Hitting another racer, especially even though he was okay, that's a no-go. That's just in my opinion childish. But
I agree. Fighting shouldn't happen. But if you are going to fight, make it NASCAR style. Come on, I want to see some sucker punches. If you're going to get in trouble, go big or go home.
just like hammer fist.
I want to see some real fighting if you're going to fight. You're still going to get penalized heavily because you shouldn't fight, but let's make it good.
Now, I don't want to talk about this for too long, but I will say, I wonder if Russell trying to go for that move was maybe not desperate. I don't want to say desperation, but as I said in the beginning of this podcast, trying to prove that he is better than Bottas and he deserved the seat instead of re-signing, even though there was a hole, like he still was under Williams' contract.
Oh, I think absolutely. He was trying to. He had that amazing overtake on Bottas in Bahrain last year. He's thinking, you know what? If I can do that again in a Williams on merit over a Mercedes, I'm going to get that seat for sure next year. And looking back on it, making a decision, it was a racing incident. The stewards have ruled on that. I'm definitely, even though I believe that was the correct call, I'm blaming more Russell. He shouldn't have gone for that move. It was too wet.
Yeah, I agree. Maybe it was a bit of an experience. Like he is a newer he's not the newest driver, but he is still he's in his I want to say his third year.
He's third year. He's in his early 20s, and he wants to impress. He wants to get out of that Williams next year. He's had enough fighting at the back.
I feel like it was more. I feel like it would be more impressive if he overtook, because I think it was going into one of the first chicane. If he overtook in the middle of the chicane or after it.
You know, if you don't go for a gap that exists, you're no longer a racing driver, as his family said. Unfortunately, I believe that was the same corner where Senna lost his life, and we're very lucky to have these two drivers still with us today. It's just, whew, I think it was naive. I think Bottas didn't do anything wrong. The only thing Bottas did wrong was being in the position in the first place.
I agree 100%.
Other than that, he did what he needed. He left plenty of room for Russell to go through. And then when he saw Russell really going for it, he gave him even more room, turned left to try to give him a little more space. I think Bottas did everything he could. So I'm not blaming anything on Bottas this time.
Besides being there.
Besides being in that far back and the car not performing.
But enough about that. Let's move on to our bold statement. Alan, what was your bold statement this time?
My bold statement is, I believe McLaren will win a race this year. They got close last year with Sainz hunting down, Gasly.
Gasly and Monza.
Oh, could you imagine if McLaren could pull off a win this year? That would be so amazing for the team. They've worked so hard to crawl their way back up towards the front. It would be so rewarding. Rafi, what's your bold statement?
I have two. My first one, and this is going to take a bit of explaining, is because of how much fighting is happening up front, and it's only between Verstappen and Hamilton. Bottas and Perez really haven't been performing. Yeah, it's only the second race of the season, but if stuff keeps happening like this, with McLaren finishing in like third and seventh, or maybe even third and fourth sometimes, depending on how races go, I think McLaren can take the constructors. If it's only Hamilton and Verstappen fighting for points, and the others don't get points or maybe get 10th or 9th.
Yeah, it would be very exciting to see that.
Yeah, I would be ecstatic, of course. And my other one is, if this kind of is based off of if McLaren can get first, in the same theories, is Ferrari's looking really strong. I think Ferrari can get third, or they're at least solidified as fourth place in constructors. I think they are the gatekeepers to top three. And they're just going to have a lucky break to break into top three.
Yeah, it could happen. McLaren's looking really strong. If, Mercedes has, or Red Bull have that one driver that's just not performing throughout the season, it could leave the door open for definitely McLaren possibly being second. It would be amazing if they could get first, but it could be a little bit hard to do, but it's possible. And Ferrari, the same thing. They could be their third, fourth. They're really close with McLaren this year. We really have an old school McLaren and Ferrari fight, even though they're not leading the championships. It'll be good to see them fight again on merit.
Yeah.
But it's time to go over predictions from last week. We'll be keeping score of these throughout the season, and I'm once again adding them to our Instagram, which is knockoffmedia_racing. Rafi, what was your prediction of last week?
So my prediction from last week was Verstappen is going to beat Hamilton by 0.4 by 0.4 of a second or more. And I think I can confidently say I got the point this week. He beat him by what was it? 15 20 seconds?
Yeah.
Yeah. What
And
was yours?
oh man, let's not talk about it. It's just why dwell on the past?
Why you said Verstappen losing to Hamilton in the
Loses to
same
Hamilton in
fashion?
the same fashion. Okay, didn't
He
happen.
almost did. He almost did. If there was like actually 3 more laps, it could have happened.
You never know with a wet race or drying wet race. It was very possible. However, I did not get a point, and you get a point. Moving on to the future, though, we will now be making at least 3 predictions. That way, we have better chances of scoring and keeps this kind of personal championship a little more exciting.
Mm-hmm.
Rafi, since you got the point this week, why don't you start us off?
All right, I'm going to start us off with maybe something that's a bit safe, maybe not because he didn't do it this race. I think Mazepin's going to crash. Not DNF, but crash at some point in the race because it is
Okay.
Portugal, and I don't know how comfortable he is on that track.
So wait, just in the race?
Yeah, I think he's going to crash in the race.
Okay, so now that you said it, it's confirmed.
It's confirmed that in the
You
race,
said the race. If he crashes in qualifying or practice, you're not getting a point.
No, because I feel like it's predictions for next race, not next weekend.
Okay.
So, and I think this goes for what else I'm going to say. I think Norris can get top 3, third or above again in the race.
That would be very exciting.
I would love it because it's going to show that he is, and I love Daniel Ricciardo. He is McLaren's like Verstappen. He is going to be there, I think, for the most of his career, if not all of it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Not McLaren's Lewis Hamilton, because you remember Lewis Hamilton was a McLaren driver.
Yeah, but then he went to Mercedes.
Yeah, but he won the championship with McLaren and then almost won it in 2007.
Yeah. No, I agree. I just like he's going to be there for life kind of thing is what I'm talking about.
He's going to be there for a nice long career.
Yeah. And then my third one is if Russell doesn't crash again, I think he can get bottom 10.
What
I think he get 5th
he gets point?
through 10th. He get 5th through 10th.
5th would be quite something.
Yeah.
Well, but I could see him potentially getting points. All right, so
yeah, 100%.
All right, so if he gets within the first 10 places, you will get a point on that one.
Yeah, if he finishes above 5th place, going to be kind of salty that I said bottom 10, but I'd also be super happy.
I don't think you could be upset. He's in the top 5. You should be throwing a party for him.
Yeah, but that's hard to do. What were your predictions for the next race?
Okay, get ready for some rage. I kind of made mine as some I think I could get some points and like kind of just sneaking them in, and others I just wanted to get a reaction out of you. So, you ready for the first one?
Yeah.
Latifi gets points. Russell does not. It's going to be like what was it, 2019 with his teammate. I'm drawing a blank. Draw the blank. Who was his teammate? Kubica. Robert Kubica
you're talking about
got
Russell
points.
Kubica.
Yeah, he got points. Russell didn't. I feel like it's going to happen again. Latifi will beat Russell to points. I'm not saying Russell crashes or he has a bad race. It's just
he
finishes
11th instead of 10th.
Exactly.
Kind of
something happens. They screw up a pit stop or something. Something will happen. Latifi will get it because that Williams looks good with downforce, and I believe Portugal is a good downforce track.
I don't know if you're trying to get a rise out of me or not because you're saying Russell doesn't. I would love to see Latifi get points. I'd be upset if Russell didn't, but if Latifi got at least a point, that means Williams is not last place as of now.
Exactly. Latifi has been stepping up his game slowly, especially over last year. His last year was a rookie year. I think people forget that because it didn't have the excitement of 2019 with the 3 Albon, Russell, and Norris coming in. So I think he's going to step it up. We're going to see some good performances. Maybe even not. This is not for points. Out qualifying Russell, but I'm not betting on that one for this next race.
It was close this race though.
It was close. Maybe I should have put that in there, but it's too late. I haven't.
All right, what's your second?
My next one, Verstappen and Hamilton will battle for the lead.
Oh wow! Wow! Nah, Verstappen and Hamilton.
one of them will crash during qualifying or something and just have a terrible race and have no battle, and one will just lead the entire thing.
What do you count as a
Or
battle? Because this is interesting. What do you count as a battle? Because it could be
anything.
Hamilton pole, Verstappen second, but Hamilton just has a 15-second gap.
I'm
Or are you
talking
talking about?
about a battle. The closest thing to being battle that I'll count is if they get into DRS range of each other. If he's
Is it
outside that DRS, or you know what, I'm going to rephrase it. If he's within like 2 seconds. If he's beyond that for most of the race, I will not get a point.
within 2 seconds?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm writing this down.
Okay, no, it's not a problem.
Yeah. Because honestly, I
Well,
respect you for going for the low bar. I respect you. You need the point. I'm leading right now.
okay. And my last one, this one's could piss off a lot of his fans out here. But I'm getting this feeling, and my feelings don't always are too off. Sonoda will crash, and throughout the season, he will get their reputation. I know this part's not for points, but he will crash. That's what I'm saying. He'll crash
You think he's
within
going
the
to turn
weekend.
into
No, the
Crash
weekend.
Noda?
The whole weekend. Once throughout the whole weekend, not the race.
Okay. So you're not being as specific as the race.
Yeah, I'm going. He's going to crash sometime this weekend.
Wow. Am
And
I
then
allowed
the
to?
sub point is I'm saying he's going to become the new Maldonado, where he gets kind of this crashing reputation.
So not as bad, not like Crash Stappen, but okay.
A
Wow, can I
little
amend
worse.
my Mazepin to the weekend?
No, you had
Since
already
we're being
committed.
that
We
because you're being
already
that
committed.
general. Oh, you're trying to do. You know what? I think I get I think I get 3 points this week.
Okay, I wouldn't change it.
I
You had
don't
already committed.
I don't want Mazepin to get hurt, but if he crashes, and when I say crash, I also said like crash, not DNF, but just crash in general. If he
Uh,
has to pit
are you counting
because
as a crash first or a
he
spin as a crash?
uh any car damage,
Okay, so if he
any like
spins, no
front wing
damage, he's fine.
yeah, if he spins, no damage.
You're not
Any
getting
front
point.
wing damage, like if he has to change his front wings or he has to change his tires because of massive flat spots. Depending on the spin, like I mean, like he can't drive because of the spin. But yeah, I'm just going to throw that general crash out there.
Okay, well, just to give a little quick recap before we say goodbye, it's Rafki's prediction is Mazepin crashes in the race, Norris gets top 3 again in the race, and then Russell is in the bottom 10 for really the top 10. Bottom 10 is a little bit backwards.
Sorry, I should say bottom half of the top 10.
Yeah, bottom half of the top 10. And mine were Latifi gets points, Russell does not. Verstappen and Hamilton battle for the lead of the race within 2 second gap at the max. And Tsunoda will crash sometime in the weekend. So next up is Portugal, which is not this weekend, but the weekend after. We will, of course, have our podcast come out later that week after the race. Rafi, any final thoughts before we say goodbye to our listeners?
No, for next week, or for next race, not next week. Ooh, that was bad.
Oops.
Uh-oh. I just want it to be good. I want all of her predictions to come true, barring the Latifi and Russell. But like I said, I'll be happy. That's about it. Do you have any other thoughts on our podcast, on the last race, on what can happen for the next race?
I think this race is going to be really good. I know that sounds really funny, and like it. I was kind of expecting Imola not to be that great, but when I saw the rain, you just obviously know it was going to be great. There's something about this Portugal track. I think it gave a good race last year, and I think the cars seem there's a little more competitiveness this year.
I
So
think
I'm going to say it's going to be a good race. I
yeah,
hope so.
I missed
If I,
Portugal last season. I
I'm
was working.
knocking on wood. So
Yeah,
that way we don't jinx ourselves.
yeah.
All right,
Well,
I think that's it. So this has been Knock Off Me Tyre for Tyre podcast. Thank you for listening. I know you're listening now, but if you want to check us out on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, and there's a few others, but they are posted on our social medias. Feel free. Tell us the best one you like. Oh, we're also on YouTube, so check us out there if you like. Thanks for listening.
and remember to like, comment, share, and subscribe, or follow us on Spotify or on iTunes or wherever you want to listen to your podcast.
Exactly. All right. Goodbye, everyone.
Bye bye.